Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast, featuring newly released songs you need to know and the tried and true classics. Get song ideas from the time guests arrive until the last dance of the reception. And now your host, Matt Campbell, founder of MyWeddingSongs.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wedding Songs Podcast. I am Matt Campbell, and Latin weddings is something that I don't talk about very much on the podcast. So I wanted to bring an expert in to help me out. And today we have Dre Ovalle, DJ from New Jersey. Welcome to the show, Dre.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show. And I'm going to start the way I start every podcast is, can you talk about a memorable or heartwarming wedding moment?
I guess one of the most memorable moments I had at a wedding was maybe like a decade ago. I DJ'd first of all, I met this couple. They found me online and they loved everything I did. Then they added me on Instagram, and over time we kind of became friends. Then the day of the wedding, they had my little name plaque on the table. So I got to sit down with all their guests and their friends. It wasn't like a vendor table. It was like I was part of the family, and it wasn't awkward. It wasn't like I tried to finish up my meal and then go back to my area and get back to work. It was kind of like I sat there and I talked to them for a few minutes and I got to know everyone, and it was pretty awesome. But at the end of the wedding, they gave me an envelope, and that was my tip. And then they gave me another envelope, and I'm like, what in the world is this? And they said, open that one. And they're like, okay. So I opened it, and they gave me 2 tickets to go see the band Lamb of God. I'm a big metalhead. So they gave me my tip and my 2 concert tickets. And I thought that was one of the most unique and most memorable things that anyone has ever done for me at a wedding.
That's so awesome. You know, it's great that they're making you part of the family. So one side question that I have, because you're sitting down with the family, I'm guessing they didn't expect you to live mix at that moment.
I guess they knew how DJs worked, or they've been to plenty of weddings already. I just had a pre-played playlist or something for dinner, and they just let that play, and they said, Dre, just come hang out and have dinner with us, and once it's time to rock, we know what you do, and just get to it after that.
Yeah, I think so many people forget that the relationships that we create. So many DJs that I've had on the show, it's like they're become family. They're following on Facebook, even they're having kids and all these things through the years. It's a special relationship for sure.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Dre, can you talk a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. Again, my name is DJ Dre Ovalle. I'm based out of Central Jersey and all over the tri-state area, New York, Maryland, Pennsylvania, wherever I'm needed. I primarily do weddings nowadays, but I started out as a rave DJ. I did a lot of underground warehouse parties when I was younger. Then I transitioned to more club work, casino type of work. And then from that, I transitioned over to DJing weddings, and I learned how to MC. A big shout out to someone we were talking about earlier, Greg Holman, a good friend of mine early in my career. He showed me a lot regarding the wedding industry, if you will. But yeah, I started from a rave DJ to a club DJ, and now finally a wedding DJ.
So what do you like best then?
I think I'm so far gone from the raves and the clubs. I totally prefer weddings nowadays. It's just far more rewarding, and I love doing it every weekend because this is what I do every weekend. So yeah, I think at this stage and age of my life, I totally prefer doing weddings. I had my fun time doing all the other stuff, but I'm too old. I don't know.
So let me ask you, because I see this more and more common. I see the festival vibes being brought into the weddings. Are you seeing that as well?
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like couples like hiring someone that doesn't play that type of music, but that actually was part of that scene when it was big. Like, let's say 10 years ago when EDM just blew up and whatnot. I was in that scene way before that even blew up. So for couples to hire someone that understands that subculture, be it electronic music, or even, let's say, I'm sure you've noticed a lot of modern weddings, they want an emo throwback set in those weddings. And again, I'm a big metalhead. I grew up in those subcultures. So again, I know what the hits were, but I also know those deep tracks that get people going because I was part of that subculture when it was big at the moment.
That's cool. Today, we're going to be talking about Latin music and Latin weddings, of course. How have you been successful in booking Latin weddings?
So I've been very successful at it, but for starters, most of my Latin weddings are hybrid weddings where you have one person from some Latin American country and then someone else from another country. And what I mean by that, let's say I get Dominican and Polish couples, I get Puerto Rican and Trini, I get Mexican and some American kid that grew up on heavy metal or something. So that's my bread and butter, if you will. It's more hybrid weddings, not just all Latin weddings. I do those, but most of my success comes from multicultural couples that need someone that is an expert in both, if you will. And most of my success, I feel, comes from one, word of mouth, two, a lot of my colleagues in the area, when they come across a couple, a Latin couple or something like that, they know Dre can handle this, so let him do it. But also social media. I'm really big into social media. Sometimes I take breaks, but a lot of my leads come from social media. I'm big on posting minimum 3 times a week, and I make these cool transitions where I transition between English and Spanish music or different genres, and people see those and they're like, yo, well, that's pretty cool. Can we set up a call to talk about possibly DJing our wedding? And then after that, I'm in. Once I get those DMs, I know I'm in. I'm confident I can persuade them that I'm the right person for their wedding. So yeah, most of my success comes from word of mouth and social media.
That's fascinating that you say that, because I always come from a background of SEO and building your websites. So what percentage would you say that you book from that social media platform?
Oh, I would say 50% maybe. I totally agree with you. SEO and all that, very important. That's something I'm still trying to understand myself, to how to get more bookings straight from Google SEO and whatnot. But as far as like what I get from word of mouth or just people finding me online to someone DM me on Instagram, I will say 50%.
That's pretty sizable. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So are there unique moments of a Latin wedding that every DJ should know?
I think one of the most unique moments in Latin weddings, I think, would be the Hora Loca, or the crazy hour. And Hora Loca is, for those that don't know, it's 45 minutes to an hour of party devoted to just going all out at the party. The thing between those is that I noticed that every culture does this differently. So the more Americanized Latin weddings, they do the high EDM, the glow sticks, the CO2 cannons, the sparklers. The more Caribbean Hora Loca, they do the more carnival type of theme, or like masquerade type of theme. And then the more South Central American ones, those are the ones that have like the giant LED robot, and they have Goku from Dragon Ball Z, a clown, and Pikachu dancing in the middle of the dance room. It makes no sense whatsoever. There's no theme to it, but it's just a bunch of randomness on the dance floor. So yeah, I think that's one of the most unique, I guess, things when it comes to Latin weddings, and just understanding where your couple or your crowd are coming from, because each Hora Loca is going to be differently.
Let's get more into music then. Does the heritage of the couple and the family dictate the type of music?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always ask, where are you from? Or usually I can tell just by talking to them, just by dialect. So let's say if they are more from, let's say, Mexico, you play more banda, norteñas, etc. If they are more from the Caribbean islands, that you play more salsa, merengue, bachata, típico. That's big with Dominicans. And if you play more for like South or Central Americans, you play more merengue or cumbia. So yeah, it totally depends on the region they're from, and it's important to know where they're from, so you know the correct music to play for those type of crowds.
I think that's so important, just because you have to know where they're coming from, exactly what you said, to know what styles of music. So besides the common genres like salsas and merengues and bachatas, are there any regional Latin music styles you recommend DJs to be familiar with?
Oh yeah, let's take cumbia. Cumbia's a big one. You won't play Mexican cumbias to someone that's from South America, because they just won't understand it. You won't play típico for someone that's not out of the Dominican Republic, because again, they did not grow up on that. They don't understand it. And even like Latin rock. Latin rock, you can only play that for South or Central Americans. You can't play that for people from Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or anything like that, because they didn't grow up on that. They don't know the songs. So yeah, absolutely. The genres depends again on where they're from and what culture grew up on and where they're from.
One thing that I want to clarify that you said is they wouldn't understand it. Is it the language? What do you mean by that?
So yeah, they will understand the language. It's all in the same language. It's just they didn't grow up on those type of genres, or they'll just go over their head. Like they'll just hear it and like, all right, cool, it's a song, but it's not something that's gonna get them hype, or they're gonna sing along to it or whatnot. But it's all
Yeah.
the same language, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that, just because it's kind of the same thing in Las Vegas. You could have J-pop, you could have pop, you could have country. If you're not into country, like many couples, depending on the location in the country,
Yep.
it's the same thing. So
Exactly. Yep. It's very important to know regions and areas and whatnot.
yeah, it's fascinating. So many Latin radio hits are explicit. How important is knowing the meaning behind some of the Latin songs for weddings?
So this one, it depends on, put it this way. For me, for hybrid weddings where you have American and Spanish music at a wedding, those type of weddings, I find they're more forgiving with the explicit language, primarily maybe because they know a lot of the English speaking crowd, they're not going to understand what the songs are saying. But when you play to a crowd that's like 90% Hispanic or Latino, yeah, you kind of want to stick to clean versions just because, again, you don't want to offend anyone. But I know why it is. But yeah, when I play for hybrid crowds, doesn't really matter. When I play for like full on Hispanic or Latinos, yeah, it definitely matters.
Yeah, it's funny that one of the most popular songs is Pepas, and it's like, do people really know what this song's about?
You're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and people request that song all the time, but it's literally, I'm not sure if you know about the artist of that song, but that song, it got so popular for him that he actually transformed. He realized his mistake, I guess, for creating the song, and he ended up being a devoted Christian, and he didn't want to play that song ever again, like perform that song, because he felt it influenced the young crowd too much because it was such a hit. So instead of performing his songs, he started preaching about the word of God at his concerts, and people did not like that. So his career kind of tanked after that because of him doing that. And I think he's trying to revive his career right now. But yeah, most people don't realize what that song is about. It's just a party. It's just a fist pumping party hit. But for the most part, yeah, most people don't know what that song is about.
I have a really hard time when I'm researching Latin music, looking at the charts, saying, okay, what songs do I want to add to my song list? And then I even go as far as I'm in Google, translate these lyrics. What is this about? And it's like, oh my gosh, this is, I can't
Filthy.
add this song.
Yep, yeah.
I wish I had an example for this. I should have pulled one up, but yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, talking about it, it gets pretty raunchy sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
But hey, not to say that English speaking pop music isn't the same as well. So
that's true. Yeah.
Time for a quick break from the show to let you know about the Wedding Music Letter. Are you struggling to find the wedding songs that match your personality and music style? Are you having a hard time keeping up with the new wedding songs being released? Then subscribe today to the Wedding Music Letter by going to my website, myweddingsongs.com, and clicking on the Join Now button. Every Wednesday, you'll get song ideas to build your wedding playlists. On the last day of the month, you'll get all of the new wedding songs released from the prior month. So subscribe today and join over 7,000 other engaged couples and wedding pros by going to myweddingsongs.com and joining the Wedding Music Letter today. Now back to the show. So when you're DJing the Latin weddings or the fusion weddings, how can a DJ keep the energy high throughout the reception, even for those that are unfamiliar with the music?
I guess my tip for that is follow the BPM. Like if you aren't familiar with the songs or the genres, just try to shoot for the high BPMs. And what I mean by that, music in the 140s to 160 BPM. And that would be stuff like punta, some merengue, some típico, some norteños. You know, you won't play punta for a crowd from South America, and you won't play típico for a crowd that's from Central America. But if there's one advice I would give is, yeah, stick to the BPM and stick to merengue. I don't know why we as Latinos, Hispanics, whatever, we all have our differences as far as like genres or music, but merengue, I feel like that's the one, like, yeah, certain songs, it depends on certain songs, but merengue is like the one style we can all agree it's party time and we're going to have a good time. So yeah, just go for the higher BPMs. And if you aren't familiar with the genres, just stick to merengue and just go of that. That would be my advice if you want to keep the energy up at a wedding or any Latin-based event.
I hear a lot of buzzwords in the industry, and one of them is reggaeton.
Mhm.
What is your thought of that style of music for a wide variety of shows?
So for reggaeton, I would play that for anyone from the Caribbean, any Americanized Latinos, Central Americans, South America. You want to play more, I guess, more South American reggaeton, like Colombian reggaeton. I grew up in the era when reggaeton blew up. So for me, I love playing reggaeton because it's stuff I grew up on and it's my generation's music. But yeah, a lot of it is raunchy. A lot of it has explicit language, so it's important to keep in mind. If you have a clean version, try to stick with the clean version. But yeah, I grew up on that stuff, so I love playing that stuff.
I love it. Great tips there. It's funny. You were talking about that style of music, and one of the people that everybody thinks of is Bad Bunny. And I read recently, probably within the last 6 months, how Peso Pluma has taken over Bad Bunny in popularity in Mexico. So that really takes me into every DJ knows the crossover hits by Bad Bunny, Selena, and tracks like Mi Gente. Can you share any of your favorite go-to Latin wedding songs that always gets the crowd going crazy?
So I guess for salsa, I would play, again, this would depends on the crowd, but I would play Lalo Rodriguez, Ame Otra Vez. That song is a song I remember my mother playing when like was cleaning the house when I was a kid. And I feel like any Americanized Latino, when they hear that song, they don't know the name of the song, but when they hear it, they're transported instantly to being a kid. And you're like, whoa, what was the name of this song? I totally remember hearing this. So that's a crossover here or a big hit as far as like salsa. If you're playing more for the Mexican crowd, I will play Tucanazo or La Chona. Everyone's heard La Chona. If you're playing more for, South American crowd, you want to play more cumbia. And lastly, I think the one song that I think, again, like merengue, the one song we all can agree that gets everyone moving is La Dueña, the swing. That song, I don't know what is it about, but it doesn't matter what region you're from. That song comes on and everyone dances. And that's like the only song I can think of at the top of my head that can get any Latino up and dancing. That's like the only one. I'm sure you've seen online on forums people asking like, hey, what song will get, everyone up on the dance floor? And not every song applies to everyone, but that's the only song I could think of that can get anyone, any Latino up and dancing. Even people that don't understand the language or Americans or just anyone. You play that song, they just try to vibe to it, try to dance to it. They don't know what it's saying, but people dance to that song. And I don't know why. It's the fast pace. I don't know what it is, but that song gets everyone up and dancing.
Thanks for the tip. I love the song suggestions, and it's particularly that one just because, like you said, it gets everybody dancing. So when you're talking about your format of your Latin wedding, typically I would think most DJs start with the older stuff and then move to the newer stuff. Are you finding yourself doing the same thing as well?
Oh yeah, I always try to do that, especially at weddings. Try to cater more to the older folks and then tire them out and then get the younger folks start playing the reggaeton and the dembow and all that, the more modern hits later throughout the night. Because also most older crowds don't want to hear, again, the raunchiness or the explicit lyrics in those songs. So I kind of save that for the last hour of the wedding. I got through all the hits, all the songs that everyone recognizes. Now it's time to jump into stuff that you probably hear at a club or something, a Latin club.
I love it. It's funny that really transcends cultures.
Yep.
That's how we've been DJing. Because I agree, you have to keep everybody happy, and the couples have to keep that in mind too when they're planning any tips for you and what you want to play. So what tips would you give to DJs not to do at a Latin wedding?
I guess just not walk in with a game plan, especially if you don't know the language. Ask the couple where they're from. That way you get a better idea of what to play. And you don't necessarily need to be so direct, like, hey, where are you from? Just, I guess, ask them in your initial call. Ask them, how did you meet? Tell me a little bit like the type of music that you want. And then based off those answers, the songs that they give you or their background or where they met, that gives you a little an insight into where they're from, their background, how they grew up. So yeah, just walk in with a game plan and make sure you know where your couple's from, so you're not lost the day of the wedding.
That goes for, I think, any wedding.
Oh yeah.
Getting to know your couples for sure. But I think it's definitely more important just to, like you said, get an idea of the style of music that you should be playing from where they're from.
Yep.
I think we forget about that. How many, especially being in Vegas, we have so many cultures here. It could be the Greek wedding, or that goes across the board, getting to know, because the part of the country that you're in is going to determine the style of music that you play.
Yep. Totally agree. Yep.
When you're talking about Latin music, it's funny. I've been to one quince before, and one of the songs that they played was a Spanish version of Achy Breaky Heart. Is that in your playlist?
I know what you're talking about, but that song, you only play it for a Mexican crowd, because anyone else will just go over people's head. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think that's so important. And it hits home exactly what we're talking about, that you have to know your crowd and you have to play to what they like. And that goes for any DJ, for any crowd. Is there something that we missed today that you want to share about Latin weddings and Latin music?
I guess don't be afraid to do these type of events, especially if you're still early in your career. I would say just take the risk and just learn the music, accept the party. Sometimes I've seen on forums DJs asking like, "Hey, I'm playing a Colombian wedding. Can you recommend some songs?" Then some person is always going to respond, "Give the gig to someone that actually understands the music." And I completely understand that. But I also feel like part of being a DJ is growing and learning other cultures and other music. So if you're early in your career and you're not afraid to take risk, yeah, take the gig. Just do your homework, learn the music, and over time you too will become proficient regardless if you speak the language or not. You'll understand the music, you know what to play. So yeah, just take the risk and take the gig if you want to learn more about Latino weddings or just any wedding from around the world.
Yeah, it reminds me of in the speaking world, if you want to learn about a topic, speak about it. And I
Oh,
think it's the same kind of thing. If you want to learn the music, then you have to DJ it. And I
absolutely.
would even hit home too that knowing more than just the Americanized popular hits, the Selenas, the Bad Bunnies, the Mark Anthonys, go beyond that and get to know your couples and what's popular for them, even if you may not understand the music. I think that's so important just to know those hits.
Oh, absolutely. And it will also keep you busier because you're not just in one little bubble. You can branch out to other type of events or weddings. And next thing you know, you're doing 3 or 4 weddings a week if you want or you can by yourself just because you're not limited just to one language or one demographic or one bubble, if you will. So yeah, totally agree.
So, a final question is, how important do you think it is for a DJ to speak Spanish at a Latin wedding?
This one depends on the couple. If they need someone that can speak Spanish and English just because they have family members that don't understand English or they're more comfortable in their native language, then yeah, it's important. But yeah, it depends on the crowd, really. Like I don't think it's super important, but if a couple asks for a bilingual MC, that's super important.
I think exactly what you said, the announcements. If your closest family only speaks Spanish, then yeah, it has to be somebody that's bilingual for sure.
Exactly. They'll be lost halfway through the wedding. They don't know what's going on or who's going up to say a speech or something. So yeah, that's something I don't really ask that question. It's just something that's brought on to me like, hey, we need a bilingual MC. And sometimes I ask, do you mean someone that can play or a bilingual MC DJ? And I ask them, do you mean someone that can play English and Spanish music or someone that can play English and Spanish music and also speak Spanish and English? Because I feel like most couples aren't sure which one they need. So it's just a question I always ask during our initial call.
I love it. That's such an awesome tip for every couple that's listening. So where can listeners connect with you and follow along with your 3 posts on Instagram?
So yeah, you can find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram at DJ Dre Ovalle. It's DJ Dre Ovalle. You can add me. You can feel free to ask me anything, really. I'm always willing to share information, be it, Latino weddings or Hispanic weddings, or even tech questions. I come from the world of AV, so I always get questions like, hey, how do you connect this and that? How do you do this? How do you set this up? So yeah, you can find me on pretty much any social media out there under DJ Dre Ovalle.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dre, for being on the show. You're a wealth of information, and hopefully everybody got as much out of this as I did.
My pleasure. I had a blast.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Stay tuned for next week with another episode of the Wedding Songs Podcast coming out every Thursday morning. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Wedding Songs Podcast. Never miss a future episode. Subscribe today to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook at My Wedding Songs and send us a message about playlists you would like covered.